Hello, dear students. So we will continue with the topic of photosynthesis, which we started in the previous video. So photosynthesis, you understood, is a process carried out by all green parts of the plant in the presence of sunlight. So if you have to represent it in the equation form, it is written like this, that 6 moles of carbon dioxide combined with 12 moles of water in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll to form glucose, 6 moles of oxygen and 6 moles of water. Please remember, it is very important. You mentioned 12 water molecules here and 6 water molecules on the product side. 12 water molecules are broken down and 6 new water molecules are synthesized. So if you happen to write 6 water molecules here, it's an incorrect equation. So the correct equation requires 12 water molecules on the reactant side. Now, this photosynthesis process is divided in 2 phases. First phase is called as the light dependent phase, the photochemical reaction, the Hill reaction, and this is taking place in the thylakoids. The second phase is called as the light independent phase, the dark phase, the biosynthetic phase, or it is also called as the Blackman's reaction. This takes place in the stroma or matrix. Now, you understood that in the leaf, the guard cells have the chloroplasts. And besides that, the 2 cells here, 2 group of cells here, palisade and spongy mesophyll, they are the layers which facilitate this photosynthesis. And in them, it is the chloroplasts which facilitates photosynthesis. And you did that thylakoids, the structure which has the chlorophyll, or the stroma is the part where light and dark reaction occur. So the light reaction occurs in the thylakoids, the dark reaction occurs in the stroma or the matrix. So let's start with these 2 reactions. First, we will be studying the light dependent phase, the Hill reaction or the photochemical reaction. This takes place, number 1, in the thylakoids, and this requires chlorophyll. So chlorophyll is present in thylakoids. So it occurs in 2 steps. Number 1 is the activation of chlorophyll. Now, once sunlight falls on the chlorophyll, the sunlight contains packets of energy which are called as photons. These photons are absorbed by the chlorophyll molecule and the chlorophyll molecule becomes activated. Once it is activated, the chlorophyll molecule will help to split up the water molecule, and the water molecule will break down to release hydrogen cations, electrons, and oxygen gas. Since splitting of water, that means lysis or breakdown of water is taking place in the presence of sunlight, this process is called as photolysis of water. So photolysis means the breakdown of water in the presence of sunlight, and it produces hydrogen ions, electrons, and oxygen gas. Now, the end result of this reaction is the 3 different things which you can see in front of you. Number 1, there is formation of NADPH. Now, what is NADPH? NADPH stands for reduced. Since the word H has been added here, addition of hydrogen basically means reduced. So reduced nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate. Now this compound is formed from NADP. NADP is N-nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate. Now this is an energy-rich molecule. It is this structure which will carry the hydrogen from the thylakoids to the stroma and will help in the formation of glucose. So NADP plus, we add this plus sign here, indicating that this is an acceptor of electron. It is the oxidized state of NADP, and it is readily going to become reduced by accepting the electron and hydrogen produced during the photolysis of water. So once these 2 react with NAD plus, it forms the compound called NADPH, that is reduced NADP. Now, Once NADPH is formed, the oxygen gas which was produced during photolysis of water is liberated out. If it remains back in the plant, it interferes with the formation of glucose. Oxygen acts on glucose during the process of respiration. If surplus oxygen is there, it will interfere with the formation of glucose. So to prevent that from happening, the plant removes this oxygen during the daytime. And it is this oxygen which we all require for breathing purposes. The third thing which takes place is photophosphorylation of ADP. Now, what is photophosphorylation of ADP? ADP stands for adenosine diphosphate. ADP changes into ATP, adenosine triphosphate, by using an inorganic phosphate, a phosphate present inside the cytoplasm. And it combines with ADP to produce energy-rich molecule called ATP. Now, it is this ATP which will be providing energy for the second, that is the dark phase. So the light reaction basically leads to formation of NADPH, liberation of oxygen, and formation of ATP. Now, it's a very common question here, which is asked in the exams. What is the source of oxygen produced in a plant? So here your options are water and carbon dioxide. So by now you know this oxygen comes from the water. During photolysis of water, the oxygen is formed. So the source of oxygen is water. So the light dependent reaction occurs in this manner. We will revise it here once more. The sun provides packets of energy to the chloroplasts, and in them the thylakoids which contain chlorophyll, they get activated. Now once the chlorophyll is activated, the activated chlorophyll acts on the water molecule, bringing about photolysis of water. Photolysis of water releases oxygen gas. This oxygen is removed in the atmosphere. It's not kept inside the plant, and it produces the hydrogen and the electron. This hydrogen combines with NADP plus to form NADPH. This reaction is carried out by formation of energy. That energy is provided. Now, this entire reaction cannot occur if no energy is there, because this is occurring in the dark. This is a part of the dark reaction. So this reaction can only occur if this high energy molecule ATP provides it energy. ATP, after giving energy for this reaction, changes back into ADP and inorganic phosphate. And this entire process occurs in the stroma. This process occurs in the stroma. This occurs only after light reaction has taken place. So light reaction will lead to photolysis of water after activation of chlorophyll, release of oxygen, formation of NADPH, and formation of ATP. So this is about light reaction. Next, we have the dark reaction, light independent reaction, or the Calvin cycle. Now, this reaction doesn't need energy from sun, but this can only occur if the first part has taken place. So this reaction doesn't proceed without ATP and NADPH. So these two are only synthesized if the first part, that means the light dependent phase, has taken place. So you can represent it in this manner, that first there is the thylakoid, which is present inside the chloroplast. This thylakoid has got the chlorophyll, which is activated. On activation, it splits up the water molecule by the process called photolysis to produce hydrogen ion and oxygen gas. The oxygen is liberated out. The hydrogen cation combines with the oxidized NADP to form NADPH. It is this NADPH which goes in the stroma, combines with carbon dioxide, and leads to formation of glucose eventually. Now, after NADPH, the hydrogen carrier has taken hydrogen here. It comes back as NADP. Once it comes back here again as NADP plus, it takes up another hydrogen, another electron, goes out again as NADPH. So this is continued for a cycle so that the formation of glucose takes place. In the meantime, this dark reaction, this formation of NADPH, this formation of glucose would be requiring energy. And this energy cannot be provided by the sun. So it has to be provided by an energy rich molecule. Here, the energy rich molecule is ATP. So the ATP provides energy for this reaction, and instead, in its own place, it breaks down into ADP and inorganic phosphate. The ADP and inorganic phosphate again come back in the thylakoids to be changed back into ATP. So afterwards, this entire reaction will be continuing. As long as the light reaction is continuing, the dark reaction will continue. And ultimately, we have the formation of glucose as the end product. Now, this glucose which is formed is converted into starch for immediate storage. So the leaves do not wish to transport this oxygen, this glucose at that very moment. They change it into starch. But at night, they reconvert it back into sucrose. And then this glucose is transported. Now, the sucrose is sent from place, that means the leaves, to the other plant parts for usage or storage. And this process is called as translocation. That means its location is shifted from the leaves to the other plant parts. Now, we have various factors which control photosynthesis. So let's study all these factors. First, you have the light intensity. How much of light is falling on a plant? Then we have the water content. Now, of all the absorbed water by the roots, only 1% is used in photosynthesis. The remainder is generally transpired. It's lost as transpirational water. Then the carbon dioxide concentration controls the rate of photosynthesis. How much of carbon dioxide is present? A particular amount, a good healthy amount, would be required for formation of good amount of glucose. Generally, it is 0.04% to 0.4%. Beyond, above that, the concentration of carbon dioxide causes the closure of stomatal apparatus. Then the optimum temperature, that means the best suited temperature at which the photosynthesis occurs to the largest extent, is 35 degrees Celsius. Above this, that means above 40 degrees Celsius, the photosynthesis stops, because at this temperature, the enzymes start getting denatured. Enzymes are all proteins. So a temperature above 40 degrees Celsius will cause denaturing of the enzymes. Now, if a temperature below optimum, that means below 35, at every 10 degrees Celsius increase in the temperature, the rate of photosynthesis doubles itself. So these are the external factors which control the rate of photosynthesis. So the rate of photosynthesis increases with light intensity, but thereafter becomes stable, because additional light intensity is bad for a plant. It can lead to solarization. Again, it increases with carbon dioxide concentration, then it stops after some time, because extra carbon dioxide concentration will cause closure of stomatal apparatus. It increases with temperature, but if the temperature exceeds 40, the rate of photosynthesis goes down. So these are the external factors which control photosynthesis. Now, when you are doing the factors controlling photosynthesis, you need to know the Blackman's law of limiting factors. Now, what Blackman's law states that when a process depends upon a number of factors, the rate of a reaction is determined by the pace of the slowest factor. Now, what this means is, if the rate of photosynthesis depends upon all these factors, whichever is the lowest, that will determine the rate of photosynthesis. I'll give you an example. For example, in a factory manufacturing cars, according to you, looking at this question, how many cars will be formed in a day if 200 metallic frames are made, 100 tires are made, 100 engines are assembled and 100 interiors are made. Now, looking at 200 metallic frames, you could assume 200 cars can be made. Looking at 100 tires, each car would require how many tires? 4. So only 25 cars can be made. 100 engines, that means yes, 100 cars can be made. 100 interiors, yes, 100 interiors means 100 cars can be made. But which is the slowest step? It is this step. So in a day, only 25 cars can be made. Each car needs 4 wheels. So this is the slowest step, and it will determine the speed at which the cars will be manufactured. So you can now sum up Blackman's law of limiting factors. If you have all these factors, if you have rate of photosynthesis plotted as a graph against intensity, then the light intensity, it limits the rate of photosynthesis because carbon dioxide, water, and heat, they are not present. They are not the limiting factors. Now, if light and heat become the limiting factor, then the carbon dioxide concentration, if it is increased further, you can increase the rate of photosynthesis. But here, light and heat become the limiting factor. Now, if you increase the light also, you increase the heat also, you increase the carbon dioxide concentration also, in this case, the rate of photosynthesis again will become stable. In all these cases, the rate of photosynthesis acquires a stable value. It becomes stable. It acquires a rate of 0. That means it becomes stable. Zero growth. That means it becomes stable. It becomes saturated. And why does this happen? Because one or the other factor becomes the limiting factor. If the rate of light and intensity of light, heat, and carbon dioxide all are increased, then in that case, the number of enzymes and the cellular structures responsible for photosynthesis will become the limiting factor. Otherwise, here, when the light and heat were increased, carbon dioxide was the limiting factor. When light was increased, all the others, light and heat, they were in the heat and carbon dioxide, they were the limiting factor. So one or the other acts as the limiting factor and is responsible for the rate of photosynthesis. So the rate of photosynthesis is determined by the slowest step. This is called as Blackman's law of limiting reactants. Now, there are 3 internal factors which control photosynthesis. Number 1, the nutritional deficiencies. Chlorophyll formation, for example, requires the mineral iron, magnesium. If they are not in adequate amount, then the chlorophyll will not be synthesized. It requires the correct amount of water present in the protoplasm. If the protoplasm is dehydrated, the rate of photosynthesis falls down. Or if there is already too much of starch in or other stored carbohydrates present in the protoplasm, that will reduce the rate of photosynthesis. It depends on the structure of leaf. What kind of thickness of cuticle is there? What is the distribution of stomata? What is the size of leaf? Whether the leaf is curled or whether the leaf is exposed to sunlight. All these will determine the rate of photosynthesis. Now, when you're doing photosynthesis, you need to know about 2 points. They're called as compensation point. Now, in a plant, 2 processes are occurring simultaneously. One is photosynthesis. The second one is respiration. Photosynthesis becomes maximum during daytime and respiration becomes maximum at night. During daytime, the stomata allow diffusion of gases, but maximum photosynthesis occurs. And at night, stomata are generally closed, so maximum respiration occurs. But twice during a day. Number 1, at dawn, early morning, and at dusk, late in the evening before night sets in. These 2 times in a day, the rate of these 2 processes become equal. These 2 points of time are called as compensation point. Now, this means that the carbon dioxide released from respiration is equivalent to that which is taken up during photosynthesis. So you can see in this graph here, at night, the rate of photosynthesis becomes less than respiration. And during daytime, the rate of photosynthesis becomes more than the rate of respiration. And at this point, that is the light and the dawn and the dusk, the two become equal to each other. Now, this requires us to study a special category of plants called as the CAM plants. Now, CAM stands for crassulacean acid metabolism. This is a very unique kind of photosynthesis method developed by certain plants which grow in dry, arid conditions. These plants also need to photosynthesize, but they prevent opening of their stomata during daytime. So here the stomata are generally closed at during the daytime. This is done to reduce the rate of transpiration. They open at night to allow diffusion of gases. They take in carbon dioxide, store it as one chemical inside their cytoplasm, and then carry out the remaining photosynthesis during daytime. During daytime, they do not carry out exchange of gases. That is only carried out at night. And at night, they will open their stomata to allow diffusion of carbon dioxide inside the plant. So they store their carbon dioxide in a chemical compound which is intermediate before glucose. So glucose is formed during the daytime, and this metabolism is called as crassulacean acid metabolism. Some CAM plants are cactus, aloe vera, pineapple, snake plant, spider plant. Now these plants perform CAM, that is crassulacean acid metabolism. So these plants generally open their stomata at night, and when they open, they can even allow diffusion of oxygen. So these plants are said to be healthy plants. They release oxygen in the air even at night. So with this, we finish the second part of photosynthesis. The remaining structures and the remaining experiments based on photosynthesis we will be covering in the next video. Hope you have understood it all. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.